Do you prefer a frozen or an on the rocks margarita?
You can't drink alcohol at all.
But Saturday night, I'm going to get obliterated. Sunday, I'm going to be a waste of space.
Right. And I think that to me makes complete sense.
Did we just become best friends?
Morgan will love that.
In Australia is where you met your now beautiful wife.
I'd be like, hey, man, have you ever been married? I have. Don't do it.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
What an idiot.
I'm into fitness stuff. I'm into butt stuff.
All right, podcast is over, guys.
Bow, chicka, bow, wow.
What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Don't Be Sour. I'm your host, Max Tuning, and we are here with a guest that I have been a longtime fanboy of for many years for some reasons that I'll dive into later. Mr. Steve Cook.
Hello. Good to see you.
We have two of the most aesthetic guys on this planet.
Just sick, God-given wand. Ding.
You know, and actually something that I don't know if this is going to get you in trouble or be controversial or my audience is going to get pissed off.
Right off the bat, jumping into it.
But I actually say, dare I say, that you know just as much stupid movie quotes as I do.
True.
I never thought I'd say that.
We should probably have a movie off at some point.
I just, especially, it's always the older movies that people don't appreciate these days.
The 90s.
Like when I quote Dumb and Dumber and Liar Liar, people weren't even born.
I know. And they think that, honestly, they hear more of the references and they're like, oh, I saw that TikTok person. And you're like, wait, what? No, that was Jim Carrey.
Let me ask you this. Do you ever quote something and people don't know it's a movie and just think that it's a you line?
Yeah. Honestly, all the time. It's like, oh, I love when you say that. I'm like, okay, don't tell so-and-so that I stole their movie.
You know, I'm gonna you know the Magahita thing I do? Everyone thinks that's like my thing, but that's actually from a movie, but it's a movie that I don't even know if you've seen it. It's Dumb and Dumber.
Oh yeah.
Have you seen that?
I did not see that one.
It's really good. I think it's really good. You gotta drink faster, Harry. No, it's.
Is it still the original actors?
No, it's
exactly.
But it's them when they were younger. It's when Harry met Lloyd. But in that movie, there's these two people that work at a school, and the lady's like, "I want to get a Magahita," and that's where I got it from. And I just extended it out. But everyone thinks it's me, but I'm just a big fat phony.
Do you go to bed at night thinking, oh, if they only knew? If they only knew.
I think it's like I took something that existed and made it cooler.
Okay.
And I think that's what life's all about.
I like that. It's not like you're staring into a puddle being like, who am I? And the puddle says back.
But sometimes I think that...
That was a movie quote there, by the way. Who am I? I don't know.
What is that?
Zoolander. When he's looking into his puddle.
You know what I think it is? I think that a lot of these movie quotes, I'm so lasered into like 7 of the quotes that I forget the other part of the movie.
Yep.
And even... and then sometimes I'll rewatch. I'm currently rewatching The Office at the moment.
I love that I think The Office, do you watch it before you go to bed at night?
I watch it every single night right now. We're on season 5. We're rewatching it.
But what I'm saying is it like the thing you do to calm down for the day? Like The Office is a perfect calm down for the day.
What I do to calm down at night is my own time, okay? We're not getting into that, okay?
I love that. The Office is great. Honestly, I could watch The Office. People get into this debate, the best TV shows of all time, and Seinfeld, Friends. I'm like, y'all are crazy.
Friends might be the least funniest show I've ever seen in my life, which most people would...
Chandler, Monica.
Would pitchfork against me.
I have noticed Friends does really well with females ages 28 to 38.
Yes.
28 to 42. My older sister's big into it. And it's like, there's that certain time, like when I watch it now, I'm like, you can just tell everything's a studio. Yeah. It's weird how we thought that was funny.
I hate the laugh track.
Yes, the laugh track is ridiculous.
That's why that's why I try to get people into Curb Your Enthusiasm, because I'm like, it's better than Seinfeld. It's Seinfeld,
it's
where
Seinfeld
they can
creator.
curse, where there's no laugh track.
Interesting. I'll have to check that out. Seinfeld, again, I thought bits and pieces of Seinfeld were funny, but some of the characters, George's character, I'm the type of person in Ben Stiller movies, I have a hard time when there's that awkward, like in Meet the Fockers, where everything's going wrong. It's not his fault, but like, and that happened with George. That was George's character in Seinfeld, and I always struggled like with his character.
That's basically my life.
Yeah, it kind of is.
Yeah. Well, movie quotes aside, Steve, what's up, man? Thanks for letting me come to the beautiful country of St. George, Utah to film this episode. But before we really dive into it, what is it about this place that drew you here to live here? Because as I was cruising through the nothingness for the past 2 hours,
yep,
and
you came from the wrong direction. Like, coming from Vegas to St. George, it is the ugliest drive. But the minute you go north of here, spectacular.
See, the way I judge a place of how quality of life it's going to be is there a major airport close by? And trying to fly here, it's you had to fly somewhere and have a 7-hour layover, or fly into Salt Lake and it was 4 times more expensive, and you still had to drive.
It's a little bit ridiculous. And that is one of the things when Morgan and I were thinking about, hey, do we want to relocate to Scottsdale? Because we love traveling. We travel a lot, obviously international stuff. Used to do all the fitness expos and things like that, going to Australia. Coming back from Australia was like a 37-hour transit. Like it took forever to get from Australia back to St. George.
Houston has a 18-hour direct flight, and it's lovely.
Houston has a direct flight to
Australia.
Do they? Hey, babe, Houston's got a direct flight to Australia.
It's relatively new, but I've flown twice to Australia. 18 hours one way, direct.
Could I get an office at Alpha Land, you think?
Yes.
Hey, CG. He's making that happen.
Christian's like, more rent money. Fuck yeah. Absolutely. Well, Steve, let's hop into it, dude. Who are you and what do you do to the normie, to the average person? The scenario is you're in an Uber and someone's just like, you're on a crazy long drive to the airport in an Uber, let's say, and there's like, hey, what do you do?
Right. That's a good question.
It's actually the most basic question.
It is, and it's always the hardest for me to answer. I always say I'm into fitness stuff. I'm into butt stuff. No, I'm into fitness stuff. That's from a movie quote. And I think it's one of those things that. So I'll be like, okay, yeah, well, what do you I say to him, I do some YouTube. I've kind of grown a brand online, but I started off. I was a football player that kind of got done playing football, didn't have a direct, career path that I was on. And I was kind of the guy that was like, I wanted to play in the NFL, got done playing college football here. That's how I ended up here. And then realized like, hey, I'm not going to the NFL. I don't know what to do. Got divorced at that period in my life as well. I was married at 21, Utah. Woo.
You would say all this to the Uber driver.
I would, yeah. Okay. I'd be like, hey man, have you ever been married? I have. Don't do it. No, I wouldn't say that.
Morgan's like, what?
No, I would say don't get married that early. Morgan's 26, so she's just old enough.
Wait, I don't know if I know that you were married.
Yeah, I was married at like 21. Yeah. So again,
what an idiot!
Yeah, what a pathetic loser. So got married, and then so I would basically say like I used to compete in bodybuilding, board short stuff, and then I've kind of made a career out of being online, being a social media influencer. I hate that word. It's a dirty word in Australia. People hate the word influencer. What? But then I would say I do YouTube as well, and then I say, hey, I have a fitness app. Go check it out.
Do you want to get shredded AF?
Yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah.
Okay. And why? I guess why do you think influencer is a dirty word?
I just think we live in a day and age where like influencer, like what are you influencing?
Is it because no disrespect? Is it because you're older?
I am older,
and you're like, God, these kids and they're influencers.
Like it's so funny when we first had a Gymshark event at this gym when we opened it up. My business partner Jake was like, I was like, hey, we got the other Gymshark athletes. He's like, we got athletes coming. I was like, well, the Gymshark athlete. He's like, yeah, none of those people are athletes. And I was like, oh, shots fired. What do you mean? And it is like, we use the term athletes in this industry. I'm
an athlete. I'm a ghost athlete.
Yeah. And like, well, yeah. No, I do think we use that term loosely. Like as an athlete, I would think, okay, you're a professional athlete. Like what is it that you are an athlete in? You competed in competitive powerlifting. Mm-hmm. So I would say you are more of an athlete than a bodybuilder. I don't consider bodybuilding to be a sport.
Yeah, you're just flexing on stage.
I consider it more of like a art, like hey, you're sculpting the body, like Arnold would say.
You're basically Da Vinci. Wait, was Da Vinci the painter?
Van Michelangelo, Leonardo DiCaprio.
We're not talking about the Ninja Turtles here, Steve.
Who is your favorite? On 3, say it. Yeah, Ninja Turtle, because it says a lot about you. I already know.
I'm going to remember which color's which.
Yeah, I'm going to guess what yours was. 1, 2, 3. Michelangelo. So easy.
Did we just become best friends?
Yep. It honestly, again, growing up, I loved the Ninja Turtles. I was a Leonardo guy because he was like the leader, but I also loved Mikey. So
I'm more of a Splinter sewer rat guy.
The rat guy. I could see that.
I was like, I want to be the guy that doesn't look like he could whoop everyone's ass, but can whoop everyone's ass.
Okay.
With his powerful stick.
More of a rat thing going on. Okay.
So you said you played football, which is great because most people just, try to be the best at exercising, but you were a real athlete growing up.
Yeah. Dad was an athletic director, so he was in charge of all the Boise School District sports. I played
Idaho.
In Idaho. Good old Idaho.
Potatoes, nation.
Yeah. Like I had potatoes cooked. Like we had boiled potatoes, mashed potatoes, shrimp gumbo.
Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
Yeah.
Does the state, like whenever someone says like, hey, I'm from Wisconsin, I'm like,
cheese.
Does the state really lean into their potato?
I think they do. Yeah. Like a giant potato. Like I say we, like I'm like, Idaho. We actually drop potato at midnight on New Year's, the Great Potato Drop.
Yeah, and every year it kills someone, just whacks them in the head.
Yeah, so I definitely think they lean into that because it's like, hey, you can take something and it might be, I don't want to say cheesy because that's Wisconsin, but with potatoes, it's like lean into that, make it your thing. It's better be known for something than like, because do we really have that much more potato farms? Maybe a little bit, but like, you can grow potatoes pretty much anywhere, I think.
Actually, this is something that I think this is true, what I'm going to say.
Okay.
This is like a fun fact people can try it at their home. Did you know that if you take a potato and you just throw it into your backyard, like on your grass,
it will grow?
You just throw the potato, it will grow a potato plant because, as you know, if you ever leave a potato for long enough, it starts growing roots or shit out of it, right?
Really?
But it will grow into the ground and a potato plant will grow. I am 99% sure, which means I don't know. But if I'm gonna try it, I'm just gonna throw it. I'm gonna do that in my next YouTube video. I'm gonna take a potato, throw it in my backyard, and be like, we're gonna check on this every week.
If you do it at Gold's Gym in Venice and just throw it out the back, it'll probably get fertilized by some human shit too. So it's actually even better. So have you been there in a while?
I have. To be honest,
LA's a mess right now. I was just out there and I felt so bad. Just the homeless problem was crazy.
I feel like LA is something that it used to be the place of dreams, right? And it's still where all the celebrities and people that are way cooler than us live. But like every time I go there, I don't know what the appeal is. And I think it's one of those things that people want it to have this appeal and they make it have it, but I don't think it actually does.
I do think for the select few, Arnold, for example, in the bodybuilding world, everyone wants to be Arnold. So you go to Gold's Gym and I feel like you have people that are like 6 years old, look like a raisin, been on the beach, and they're like, still following that Arnold dream.
Living the dream.
Yeah.
Living in the back of my truck so I can bodybuild all day.
Yeah. And I just always would say, like, if I'm still in LA, again, no hate to anyone who lives there. A lot of people actually truly love like living in LA.
My brother lives there, loves it.
Really?
Loves it. And I'm like, well, okay.
Yeah. I just can't. I actually judge people who end up saying they like living in LA. I'm like,
you're like, have you been to Idaho?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the Great Potato Drop?
Right? What is it? Beaches? Good weather? No, I like snow and freezing my ass off.
When you mentioned all of your Uber pitch, something I noticed you talked about, a little bit of athleticism, but something I noticed that even in your like Instagram bio, which is everyone's entire life, you don't put any of your accolades of like
6'1", 215.
No, of like
do you see guys that
competitions
do that?
And stuff. People usually when they win competitions, they're like, competed in this, won this, but all that.
Yeah, I just don't want that. I don't really feel like that's, again, I don't feel like that's part of what I did, but I've always kind of been, bodybuilding to me was the backup plan, and the NFL, I think, not even a backup plan, it's just something that I kind of fell into because I wanted to compete into something. And again, I think that bodybuilding is more about...
You want to twist your mic up a little bit.
I do think some of the bodybuilding, it's more about like genetics, and then obviously a lot of it when you get onto the Olympia stage, it's crazy amounts of hard work and dieting, yes, but a lot of it's genetics.
Yes.
And I think that you can't, you're working hard, but I think for me, it was always like, that's a part of who I am. I don't want it to be the first thing people think of. So when I think of like Instagram, I always said with The Biggest Loser, I was interviewing for The Biggest Loser, and we were talking about social media and like bodybuilding. And I always would get back to, if someone looks at the Instagram, if they see the shirts off, the magazine stuff, or the bodybuilding, that's like when you feed a baby, you need to put the peas and carrots and like the actual substance.
This is the analogy you're going with? Okay.
With applesauce. Mm-hmm. And so the bodybuilding pictures, it's like, that's the applesauce, that's the sweets, that's the tantalizing, like that's what's going to draw people in. But hopefully there's deeper, more like actual real information and stuff that's quality rather than just like, hey, look at me with my shirt off.
Have you ever used that analogy before? Is that like your
I use it from time to time, sometimes in interviews with TV producers. So
I don't know if you know this, but I'm kind of a big deal. There's
many
many
leather-bound books that smell of rich mahogany.
It's a movie quote for everyone, by the way.
You guys don't get it.
Christ. Why? So you were into football because you were a big guy.
Yeah.
And you said the genetics was like you were genetically already, because I don't know if you can tell, I'm not as genetically gifted as the average person.
I was actually, you were bigger in person than I thought you were going to be. I thought you were like 5'7", $135, but I think you're probably like 5'8", 145. So no, I'm kidding. You're 6 foot?
I'm 5'10".
I was actually, when I walked in, I was like, oh.
I'm an inch above average.
Max is pretty yoked.
I know. I think, you know what it is? You know, everyone says that the camera adds 10 pounds.
Yeah.
For me, the camera takes away 10 pounds, which is a little frustrating.
It's just the pasty skin.
It's you think I'm pale?
I'm kidding. You're not pale at all.
So when you were younger and you were obviously genetically gifted to be a bigger, not everyone goes into football. You have like
Right.
little peewee guys. Like what made you gravitate towards sports?
So I played all sports growing up. Again, my dad, football, basketball, baseball, wrestled. And
You wrestled?
Wrestled, yeah.
I wrestled. How long did you wrestle for?
Until I was in 8th grade. So I got second in our district, and
Let's
I was
say
done.
I wrestled until through the 9th grade. So
Whoa.
varsity in the 9th grade, by the way.
Do you know what's crazy? I have 2 wrestling singlets in my office just
wanna-
for an occasion like this.
Do you want to get?
This video is going to take a turn.
I will put you in a full Nelson right now. It's illegal.
I had one move. I was strong. I had one.
I wanna know what your one move is.
I would wait till they would shoot, go for like a takedown, and then I called it the cement mixer. I don't know if it's called that, but basically they would shoot head I guess I would put them in a reverse headlock, and then up and under, like underneath their arm here, and then turn them and pin them.
Yeah, and now that's what he does with Morgan.
Actually, Morgan is the scrappiest person I've ever met because she's so flexible and she has this gymnastics background. So she's so flexible and so strong with her grip. Half the time I'm like tapping out. Like Morgan, like if she did women's jiu-jitsu, she would be in the UFC in 5 years, like and
Really?
dominating the UFC. I'm kidding you not. Like if she did, because the flexibility is insane. I can't get like her leg. It's like she's like a spider monkey.
We're actually proud to announce, Morgan, get in here. Your announcement to the UFC is coming out right now. My move in the wrestling, which my coach always was like, Max, don't do this because if you miss the shot, it screws you up. Would be, get in close, get him in a headlock, hip throw, flip him over my hip. But if you miss that head grab, then they're behind you and you're done.
And then what is that called? Suplex.
Yeah, something. I stopped wrestling around.
But that move is, I mean, they do that move in judo as well, like that hip turn. It's a solid one, but you're right.
Do you think whenever, like, I've never been in a fight personally.
Me either.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, we're bonding right now.
No, it's just, I mean, like the 8th grade fight, like that was like your buddy said something, you're like, what the heck did you just say?
Have you ever been punched in the face?
No.
Me neither.
You just punch each other in the face.
You've never punched anyone in the face.
No.
Let's punch each other at the same time. Let's just knock each other out. Just for the memories, you know?
Bradley Martin did want to fight. Well, he wanted to do like a boxing thing.
Oh, I was like, you have beef?
Well, we did. We did because he didn't like the name fitness culture because he has zoo culture. And so there was, and it was
That's
this.
for the animals though.
I know, but it was also this. We actually sat down when I lived in LA and he's like, hey, do you want to do a gym together? And I was like, I'm moving back to Utah. We didn't talk about the name or anything like that. The name that was never talked about. Literally, it was one lunch meeting with him and then his business partner. I forgot his name. Super lovely guy. And just I said, no, I guess I'm going to be heading back to Utah. And then we set up this gym probably a year and a half later. And so there was some beef, but sometimes I think it was just because like it's something to talk about. The beef. Logan Paul, KSI. Like, do they really not like each other? I think they probably.
Well, now they do because
now they're in business together. So. Yeah,
that's what we need to do. We need to start a beef, fight each other.
Yep.
Which we both would be like.
Yeah.
But the whole point of me bringing up the fight thing is, I always like to say like, well, I did wrestle back in the day, but now that I think about it, I'm like, Was wrestling from 6th to 8th grade, is that going to have any carryover as a 33-year-old? Do I still have the moves?
If someone shoots in and you can throw them over your hip, maybe, but all fights end up on the ground, and that's where it's not fun. I feel like nobody wants to. You think about it, unless you just get knocked out in one shot.
That's what, my biggest fear about getting in a fight is not really the legal ramifications. It's more of, I'm worried that when I punch someone, they're just going to die instantly.
That's a real fear.
I can deadlift over 600 pounds. Clearly, that power is going to translate to force.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm not a mathematician, but the stronger you are, the more punch.
Yeah, to a certain extent. But deadlifts, I don't know if they really, like, you do have strong hips, lower back, that's where you're generating force. But have you ever done one of those punching things? Should we find one of those? I'm sure there's one of those in St. George, in a town of this size.
I'd probably break the record.
You would?
Yes.
Just, my biggest fear is getting beat by Morgan on that thing, because it's very real.
Really?
We've probably wrestled 3 times, but I'm just not a fan of getting beat by girls and things. I was kidding. She beats me in just about everything. But yeah, I definitely am not like one of those guys that likes to wrestle with their wives. That's not a thing we do.
Is that a thing?
I think there's some guys that like, there's that breakdown of like, they punch each other in the arm when they're joking. I'm just like, no, there needs to be like a clear, you get couples out there that like act more like.
Who are you hanging out with?
I don't know. That's a good question, I guess. But I think there's like a physical barrier that you don't cross with your wife. So
strictly tickle fights for this time.
Yeah. Gosh, this sounds really bad. I'm just playing it back into my head and I'm spitting on your mic.
That's all right. We've just gone off random
I knew
tangents.
this was going to happen.
Yeah, I feel like at the end of this podcast, people are like, Max, you and Steve literally talked about nothing for the entire thing. You and I made no sense. Everyone, I award you no points. Everyone is now dumber after listening to this. May God have mercy on your soul. So, football, big guy, didn't follow your dreams. Now, why didn't you go in the NFL? Were you not good enough?
Yeah, I would say I was a decent college linebacker. I played running back in high school. But
wait. Yeah. Running back's the one who he catches the ball from the quarterback.
That's a receiver. Close. Running back.
That was me actually trying.
Was it?
What is the run?
Running back usually is lined up behind the quarterback and receives the ball like a handoff.
That's all you do?
He's running. Well, you block on pass protections. You might slip out. If you're Christian McCaffrey, like you do a little bit of everything. I say Christian McCaffrey because the reason why I switched to play linebacker, you don't see many white running backs. Just, again, one of those things. But Christian McCaffrey is that oddball that is like one in the last 20 years. That there's been one like white running back in the NFL. So I switched to play linebacker thinking like, oh, maybe this is a little bit.
A linebacker? That's the one. That's like the bigger guys that just run into the guys a foot away from them, right?
Kind of. You're like 5 yards back. Mm-hmm. So you're kind of like that Ray Lewis. He was a linebacker. It's a violent position where you're doing a lot of tackling and I played outside linebacker. So I was decent. I was captain at Dixie State here. They're now called Utah Tech.
Not that decent, apparently.
Yeah, I just I wasn't. I could make things up and be like, well, I wasn't 6'4", I wasn't 260 pounds, but at the end of the day, I wasn't good enough to play linebacker in the NFL. So
I would have given you a shot, man.
You would have if you would have been the coach?
I think so.
Judging from what you know about football, that doesn't carry much weight. I'm sorry.
Football was one of. I've never seen Ted Lasso. Is that funny? As someone who knows a funny show and stuff, is Ted Lasso good?
I actually find that it was quality. It was better than I thought. And I think
everyone talks about it.
Yeah, I enjoyed the first season the most, and then again, like most shows, it's good, but it gets less good. But I definitely would recommend Ted Lasso. It's one of those shows that, and again, you feel better. It's kind of like a Yoon Olsen blog.
Okay, yeah, it starts really good and it gets less good. That's pretty much what people say about my YouTube content these days. Yeah.
I did just throw a reference in there. These guys are going to get. We were talking about Yoon Olsen videos before.
They're not going to know who Yoon Olsen is.
They won't.
They're going to try to Google how to even type Yoon. And they're going to be like, what is that?
Why?
Was that 4 U's and 3 R's?
Just
what is that movie
John
from?
Olsen. 4 U's and 3 R's.
Kumar.
Harold and Kumar.
Yeah. But it's like, what's her name?
That is one that I probably saw once. And didn't see the rest of it,
Okay, so you failed all your dreams at being a football star.
Yeah,
and then
failed.
You got into being jacked.
After getting divorced. So I kind of like double failed, like back to back.
I don't want to bring up bad memories, but walk me through why. Hold on, I'm going to get Oz. We're going to fix your mic for a second.
Just because it keeps on falling down.
All right, we're going to put a little music right now.
And remember, I'm really not good with technology. and I'm classifying this as technology.
Yeah,
so-
Steve still uses a flip phone, actually.
Nokia.
Okay, so he's like, I play Snake every day on my phone.
Underrated game. Don't hate on Snake.
Okay, so why? This might be actually kind of strange to be like, now that you're recently married, to talk about your ex-wife.
Yeah.
But like, I don't need to know I just want to know, like, why did you get married so young?
I just think it was culturally kind of in Idaho and Utah, a lot of LDS.
Potatoes, marriage.
Yeah, a lot of LDS culturally, it's a thing to do. You
What
get
is that?
married. So Mormon. Like I wasn't raised Mormon. Like I'm not Mormon. The girl I got married to was, and I think that was just kind of like, again, you get married young in the culture in that area. And so I got married, just found out, pretty quick. We dated for like 3 years, ended up getting married. And then I think about 3.5 years into it, was cheated on. And it was just one of those things. It was like, I didn't know where I was at in life. And so it ended up being the best thing ever. That's
what happens is like usually bad situations turn into like, it's like every situation led you to the point you're at now.
Yeah.
So now you're like, thanks for that.
Yeah. That sounds like a country song. I like that.
It actually is a country song.
Rascal Flatts?
No.
That's what I was thinking. God bless the broken road that led me straight to you, Max. Come on.
You're so more fitness cultured than I am with all your quotes and your.
This is looking into a mirror.
Okay, so you got divorced, and then you were like, I'm going to show you. I'm going to get so freaking shredded, and then you started your journey into being the first generation of fitness influencers.
I like that term. I've actually never thought about it. So got into, didn't have a set. I came back to school, finished my degree while I was working at Texas Roadhouse, did the Muscle and Fitness Male model search. That competition actually was the litmus test for men's physique. They wanted to see how that went. First, it was the first comp in board shorts. I had some crazy pink and black ones. That then led to men's physique. I was, I think, the third men's physique pro, IFBB pro in men's physique. And then I was the first one to qualify for the Mr. Olympia contest, the first Mr. Olympia men's physique, which I got I don't know what I got in that 6th or 7th. I know you did a podcast with Jay Cutler. His athlete won that one. And I remember there was a big uproar, like bodybuilding.com forums were going crazy. Like I'd never lost a show pretty much until then. So it was like this big deal. And I thought for sure I was winning that, if I was being honest. I thought that was but it made me realize that competing, it's so subjective. It's
literally all because mainly all subjective, right?
Yes. And so ultimately I decided to put eggs in different baskets, not just go, all in on that, which again, I don't think there's anything wrong with going all in on something that you're passionate about. It's just, I could never control that.
Well, now no one can afford to put eggs in any basket because of the price skyrocketing.
I know. It's
ridiculous.
Crazy.
When you were getting into competing and whatnot, obviously at that point your mind shifted into this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
Did you think that what did you think the end goal of starting competitions? And maybe after you got a couple under your belt and you're like, oh, I'm good at this. I'm starting to place and win. And what did you think the final outcome would be of that journey?
Well, I could remember doing the Muscle and Fitness Male model search, being like, oh my gosh, I'm going to get picked up by a sponsor. And I thought it was going to be Gaspari because they were the sponsors of the show. And
Gaspari, I haven't heard that name.
I know, right? And they actually, funny enough, they actually were like, okay, yeah, we're going to sign you. And I thought I was getting this check, part of, I think, winning that. It was hey, you get so much money.
A big check take to a big bank.
I thought it was going to be a big check. It wasn't. It was an envelope where they handed me something. And after I got off stage, I opened it up and it was just a sheet of blank paper. I was like, they just needed to show me winning something. The check wasn't in there. I think I got paid later. I don't even know. But it was a muscle and fitness cover shoot that came from that. I ended up getting sponsored by Optimum Nutrition, bodybuilding.com. And so that kind of led down to this path of, okay, now I want to do men's physique. I loved not so much the stepping on. I loved that aspect for a different reason. It was the look at me show pony type.
Yeah.
I'm out on the stage now showing everyone why I'm going to be the winner. In my head, that was always the thing. I'm going to step on stage in my head. How I would psych myself up is I already know I'm the winner. I'm just going to go out and do my posing routine. But the part I actually liked about shows was the daily schedule, the daily wake up, do this. I think that I'm just the type of person that does really well with some things that are going to be very scheduled out, like almost military. Like I love having 9 to 5 scheduled out, and then I need my zone out period, whether it's Netflix, a movie, reading a book, or going and playing golf. Right now is kind of what I do. So
You don't like wreck any kids in Fortnite?
I do not play any video games.
What?
I know.
You've never gotten into video games?
Well, in college I was probably
You're like, I mean, yours would be like what, Pong?
Pong, yeah.
And
Atari, Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac. I'll kill you in Mrs. Pac-Man. No.
No, wait. Actually, I need to stop you there. I actually hold myself to a high caliber of my Pac-Man skills.
Really?
Like high caliber.
So we were just in Arizona last week, and in our Airbnb, it had this like sit down. The screen was flat. You leaned over and a joystick.
We had one in my house.
Oh,
where you
so
had 2 people. My mom has one in her house.
Really?
Yeah.
So I had to set all of the high scores on that in every single
You're
Pac-Man.
like, high score? Did I break it? Is that good?
Asked Morgan. She was like, "Oh my gosh, you just..." And I got obsessed with that. And that's probably why I don't play video games. I have an obsessive personality when it comes to things.
You would just beat everyone at them. So
I would kill myself trying. I would like be withered away, 165 pounds. Like, no, I got to beat the score. So
well, I tell you, just my last comment on Fortnite is I've been playing it for 6 years and I'm still ass at it. So it's a game that you would go crazy trying to be really good at it because you just can't.
Yeah, and I feel like that's golf for me right now, except for I'm not in front of a screen in my mom's basement. I'm actually out on the course. No,
I have my own house now, okay, Steve?
There's so much money. I'm going to get so much hate for that. There's so much money, obviously, in video games now.
To be honest, I would actually say that golf might be lamer than Fortnite. The golf might be the lamest thing I've ever seen.
I'm open to hearing why you think that.
Okay. Well, first of all, I've never played.
That's a great start. I love where we're going.
So I do go to the driving range. Love that.
Yeah. What do you love about it?
Just whacking that ball real far.
Yeah. Getting a good one.
But after that, it just seems so lame.
Okay.
It's kind of like mini golf. A lot of fun. You get the idea of it. You go there. The first couple holes, you're like, this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then after like the 4th hole, when like it just won't go in the clown's mouth or something, and you're like, this
Too
sucks.
good for your home?
Go to your home, ball. What is it about golf besides when I think of golf, I'm like always like, oh, I can put on like my polo, some shorts,
yep.
my frat bro kind of world.
You have that vibe. I've seen.
I know.
Yeah, like you have a very golf wardrobe.
I know. Home. I got my Sperry's maybe, and then I personally don't smoke cigars, but I was like, in my mind, I'm always like, have some brewskis with the boys, cigars, maybe take the golf cart, But then I
definitely think you would get into golf. So the thing I love about golf, I didn't get into it until about COVID, and it was because I got beat by my brother and brother-in-law like bad, and I was like, I don't like getting beat. It's something that like what golf? Like I always thought it was just this old man sport.
Yeah.
Morgan was in Australia. I had the gym, but it was one of those things that coming to a gym that you own, you kind of feel like if you're there for too long, it just feels like work. So I'd come in and get my workouts, and I didn't want to just stay here all day. So it's getting outside. I love the fact that, you're getting outside, getting some fresh air. You're on a beautiful course, but it's really the idea of like golf you can't master golf. Like I can show up on the course today after playing, even pros have off days. So the thing I love about golf is that the number one golfer in the world wins 10% of the time. That's not a great stat. Like you're like, whoa, 10%. It's one of those things that from day to day, you can be completely, there's so many, every joint, every muscle in your body, you use everything. And then mentally you have to have crazy patience, but also it is one of those things that sometimes you just get bad bounces. Sometimes like if the wind is blowing, like there's so many factors you can't control. So
just because you're bad, you blame the wind and the ball bouncing. What kind of ground density is this turf,
I'm saying
man?
like you get a bad bounce in that like, hey, there's a sprinkler head or you're in the sand, like there's a bunker in the middle of the fairway. It's like I can hit a perfect shot and then be in sand the next shot.
Steve's like, that would have been a hole in one, but the sprinkler head.
Exactly. So I'm just saying it's like, it teaches you patience, and ultimately it's one of those things like it teaches you how much you can't control things.
Is it true that it's all in the hips?
It's all in the hips, baby.
I think I look at golf as a retired old man thing. And then every day I drive by this, I would say pretty
bougie.
No, medium, no, low tier. It's actually right next to a main road, which I'm like, this is weird that it's like so like 15 feet away from the main road. I'm at a stoplight. Yeah. People are playing golf, and it'll be cold, windy, and rainy, and I see people out there playing, and I'm like,
Yep.
it's the world of I have my tea time and I'm not missing it, and it's pouring down rain.
Right.
Like, this looks miserable.
It can get miserable. We actually went out yesterday, and it can blow. The wind can blow this time of year here, and it was probably like 15 miles an hour.
But you're not going to miss your tea time.
Right. Well, and actually I did. I said, I'm not playing in this. So I'm sorry to all you crazy diehard golfers out there. I just said the hell with this. But it was like gusting up to 45 miles an hour. The thing again about golf is golf right now with COVID, it is the same growth that they saw when Tiger Woods was at his peak, because there's so many people getting into the golf game. It was one of those things that you could still do during COVID because you were outside. So many people got into it because it was also one of the only professional sports that they were able to continue to play, because there's not a lot of interaction. There's not like guys in wrestling sweating on each other. It's
my favorite thing.
Right. Obviously. In golf, it's just like you're out there, by yourself hitting this little white ball 300 to 500 yards to try to get into this tiny cup. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's so frustrating, but it's so rewarding when you hit that one. The reason you go to the driving range and you just love that sweet one when you go to Top Golf, like, there's a reason. It's so satisfying to hit a great shot.
Okay, well, I'm not convinced at all.
That's fair enough.
So after your journey through the fitness thing, I would say, again, you got the sponsors, you started that world. I consider you in the first, we'll say like Arnold's like really the first, but like in the first generation of fitness influencers.
Wow.
Right?
That's impressive.
I would consider myself in the second generation.
Where's Christian?
He's in the second generation. He's not in the first generation. I always reference to anyone I even just talked about in the maybe in the podcast or outside of it with Jay, but I was like I always kind of group like you and the like Paige Hathaway and Devin Physique, like that era.
I hate that you just paired me with those other two shreds athletes.
That's the only ones that I know.
Like, I could get Paige and I actually went on a couple dates way back in the day before she was Paige Hathaway.
What?
Yeah, crazy. When I lived in LA.
Wait, her name was different?
No, her name was not. Before she had millions and millions of Instagram followers. She was actually doing, I think, a show.
Then she got too cool and was like, "Get out of here!" Steve.
Yeah, like, I'm with Shreds now. I can only talk to Shreds. No, but I think
if people don't know about the Shreds era, that was a great
crazy
time.
era.
It was.
I would have much rather you said Greg Plitt. Like, that to me was the first wave of like, and that was the guy that I kind of put on the pinnacle of things.
But Greg Plitt was like iconic, man.
Iconic.
I used to watch all. I would sign up for his the online videos and just listen to him talk.
Pure motivation.
Yeah, but he was like more of like this online persona where you like represented brands and things like that, where he was just this motivational online guy. Like, he was like almost in his own world, where you were like in the culture of the fitness world, I guess. I don't know.
Would you say Ziz was the original?
He's the sickest cunt, dude. He's fucking sick.
Morgan will love that. Yeah, but I do remember when he kind of came onto the scene, and when I wore those pink and black board shorts, I remember like the number one comment was his comment on there, and I just remember being like,
he said something to you?
Yeah, like he commented on the YouTube video of me like hitting my poses. And then, do you know what drove me nuts was I competed before him, and then he kind of, so I kind of got into it, and then he blew up. I think he passed away, and that's when like obviously his stardom just skyrocketed.
No, but even when he was alive, I would watch the
chest bra and
the Ziz videos, the motivation ones,
when he was still alive,
over and over and over and over again.
But I feel like it wasn't until he passed away that it truly went bananas.
Yeah, it's a revolution.
And from then on, I'd hit my Frank Zane. Like, when I would compete, people would be like, oh,
Steve, the Frank Zane this, but I mean, the Ziz, he just opened his hands up a little bit more.
A little bit more, and it was like the Frank Zane was more like both hands a little bit here, where Ziz kind of like pulled it back because he was the son of Zeus, so he had to like hit like a lightning bolt type thing.
That's true. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, for some reason I put you in this tiny little box.
Yes.
In that era, but what was influencers like before there were influencers? Because you were working with like real big brands. Right. YouTube wasn't like a thing really.
I remember Mike Chang 6-pack abs was the OG.
Oh yeah, man.
Fitness YouTuber.
Yep.
And then there's a couple other guys.
Scooby.
Yeah. Who's Scooby?
What?
Wait, should I know this?
You don't know about Scooby?
No.
Like the older guy that would always be shirtless?
No. I did not ever.
Oh my God.
I'm actually bad. I don't watch enough YouTube videos. Scooby.
No,
Athlean X
no.
that's like third generation.
No, dude, Scooby. Oh my God.
I do remember Max from BSN.
Tuning.
Not Max Tuning. What was his name? No, Matt. Maybe it was Matt. Maybe not Max.
I would know if there's another Max, and he's definitely not as cool. But I can't believe you don't know Scooby.
This is like when we need the Joe Rogan like to throw up on the screen Scooby. So
yeah, well, no, he's on the screen right now for the people, but not for you. Just act like, oh, Scooby.
Okay, he is. Oh, there he is. I'll have to check him.
Okay, so you're in that era, like what?
And the reason actually I got into YouTube because I was dating a girl at the time. Her brother, the Shaytards, he did a YouTube video every day for 6 years.
Yeah, Shay Carl.
Yeah. And so
wait, you started dating? Didn't you learn your lesson after getting divorced?
to just steer clear of women for forever? No. So yeah, I saw that he, had YouTube and like it was killing it. And then I started following a couple other YouTubers. So I was like, oh, I'm going to try this. My YouTube videos were definitely,
guys, we're filming a podcast here on a phone. Come on.
Holy
disrespect. Okay.
That was my phone. I just turned it off with my watch. Yeah, so I saw him on YouTube and just how powerful it was. And I was like, oh, there's no one really doing YouTube videos for fitness. So I was like, I'm going to start. I would go to expos and carry around my YouTube little camera. It was like my brick. Like it was literally the one he always would film on. And it was actually a super good camera. And so, yeah, kind of got into it with that. And I just felt like back in the day, it was just bodybuilders, fitness. Like I think the original fitness influencer on the female side was Jamie Eason. She was a bodybuilding.com athlete.
I don't know who that is.
She's from Texas.
Oh, she's right there. Okay.
Oh, Jamie Eason.
Okay.
Yeah, she was super bubbly, cute little blonde hair. Everyone loved her. And I just remember at expos, everyone would come up, die hard. Like she had a long line. Again, she was at the expos, the original. And everyone that met her, she'd say, hey, I'm Jamie Eason, like in this cute little voice. And she was just so humble, like didn't assume people knew her name.
Yeah.
And I just watched that and I was like, you know what? If I ever have people waiting to meet me in a line at an expo, I want to treat people like that. And so I think my brand was built on just going to 10 to 15 expos a year, shaking hands with people, talking to them in a line about their lifts, their problems. Because again, everyone as an individual, we know training, diet, across the board, there's things that work for like 90%, 95% of the population. But everyone's different in that they're unique and that their experiences and everything. And that's just what they want to hear. They want to hear like, well, I have this kind of issue or I work graveyard shifts. So what would you do? And once they get that confirmation that what they're doing is, right. And that like you listen to them, man, it was just like, you knew it was such a powerful way of growing a brand because then they would make you their profile picture and their friends would see it and follow along. So it was like this.
People would make you their profile picture?
Together, like we would take a picture together. I was like, yeah, not like, hey, can I take a picture of you?
Then I would send them a cease and desist for using my likeness. So Jamie she influenced the way that you would interact with people.
100%.
Have I told you the story of us first meeting?
Yeah, probably 4 years ago, you kind of mentioned it.
Okay, I want to tell it again because this is something that to this day, this is why I hold you to a high regard and standard in my life. And it's actually, I think it's a really cool story. So I want to tell it. I'm going to talk for a little bit. So 2014, Arnold Expo. Okay. I went with my buddy Nick and we drove up there and one of my still to this day best friends, Daryl the dentist, he was like, I didn't really know who you were back then. Okay. This is right. I started in like 2013, I think. So Gotcha. I'd only been on YouTube. I was super small and that was my first expo. I didn't go with like anyone. I drove there to just walk around.
By yourself or your friends?
Me and my friend. Okay. We just went there. And my friend Daryl was like, Max, I'm a huge Steve Cook fan. Like I really, really would like if you could get a picture with Steve Cook. I want a signed picture of Steve Cook. Like, can you get that? And I was like, I'll try, man. Who is this guy? I'll try. And we went into the expo, and it was probably the first 5 minutes. It happened to be where we walked in was right at the Optimum booth because obviously they have a huge booth.
Huge booth.
And then I'm like, there's that Steve Cook guy. And there was a huge long line, and we were in like the aisle. And I believe you were taking like a break at that point. You were taking a little break because there was a little Optimum Nutrition like ice cream machine in the back. Yeah. And you were like eating a little like ice cream out of like a little cup. And I pull up my phone and I'm out in the aisle. And again, you're like in the back kind of break. And I'm zooming in on you to like send a picture to Daryl. I'm like, hey, there's the Steve guy. And I don't have this photo anymore, right. And I wish I did. But you like happen to look at my camera right with that, and you're like, Like
Ice cream on my face.
Yeah. But then, so I'm like, oh shit, he looked at me. And then you waved me and my friend Nick over, and you were on your break, and there's a line. And for some reason you're like, hey, come here. And you waved me over in front of everyone back into like the kind of the thing. And you're like, what's up, man? And I was like, whoa, this is kind of crazy. And I was telling you the story about how my friend Daryl was a huge fan of you, and he was about to go, I think he was at Ferrum College, and he was about to go to Howard for dental school.
Okay.
And I was telling you kind of his story, and you were like, hey, let me send him a video. Let's send him a video saying like, hey man, like good luck on your dental school and whatever. And we got this photo, and you signed the photo. You signed a photo for me, which I actually left in the hotel room, and Daryl never got it.
I remember that the Optimum Nutrition photos that I had to sign.
Yeah. But that was my first ever experience with someone on the other side of the ropes, an influencer, a celebrity, someone like in that world. And the experience that I had with you changed my entire way that I interacted with people, because you were just like, I was like, wow, like this guy went above and beyond. He was so nice, so friendly, asking about me, my friend, willing to take time out. And the experience that you gave me was something that to this day, lives in my memory. And when funny enough, then starting in 2015 and on, every expo I'd go to, I was with a company, and I was on that side of the rope, right? Where I had a line, and I was talking to people, and the experience that I had with you literally set up the entire like trajectory of how I interact with people, because I was like, the first interaction I had with Steve was so impactful to me that this is the experience that I want to give to every single person who meets me for the first time, because it will potentially change the way they like think about me.
People remember that.
And like, it will have this like impact. And literally I credit you to anyone who's ever met me and hopefully had a great experience. You did that.
Well, I credit Jamie Eason. So we'll credit Jamie Eason for some of that too, because I think to your point, like it is, at these expos, you're waiting in line. It's not a real enjoyable experience. There's music blasting, but the connection you can get from someone from 5 minutes is insane. And I think that people might not remember every little detail, but they remember the feeling they had when they met Max or Jamie Eason. They can remember how you leave them feeling. And I can remember meeting some bodybuilders that I really looked up to that didn't want to be there. They didn't look you in the eye when they were talking to you. And Jay was great at that too. I think Jay's always done a really good job
not
with
looking
his
people in
brand.
the eye.
And making you feel like you're somebody. And I just remember again, like, I don't remember everyone that I've ever met, but I hope that there's that idea of like, hey, whenever I talk to Jamie Eason, you still get that same feeling that like, hey, she actually cares. And it's one of those things that, man, I think that we've gotten into this place now with social media that people can have 10 million followers, but if you met them in person, you'd be so let down perhaps, because you can't fake that in person. When you meet someone, you can't fake the genuine caring for people and for what they're doing in life, or giving them giving them that 5 minutes where they can talk to you about things. And I hate that on social media, and I hated that about COVID, that like, I think I kind of got a little calloused. Like I would, talking about LeBron James versus Michael Jordan being the GOAT. In person, I could disagree with someone and we would laugh about it. On Twitter, we're ready to fight. Yeah. And I hate that, because I think there's such a disconnection that when you are there in person, and I think Morgan does a really good job of it as well. That's the kind of things that I believe are we need more of in this day and age, is human interaction, and less like just like screen. Like,
well, I think when you meet someone, like my interaction with you was, this potentially could be like our first interaction, and could be the last time we ever interact. Yeah. And like what I experienced in that, for me, it was actually like 15, 20 minutes. It was like a long time, which again was impactful. But your first impression may be the last impression that you ever have with that person. True. And you want to have a lasting. And it's interesting when you see, I've definitely seen a lot of people, I guess at expos that are really big names, that it's just like photo. Yeah. And like, there is a balance of, there's a lot of people, I can't give 20 minutes to every single person. Yep. And you're trying to give as good of an experience you can. But then there's just some people that are literally just, sitting at a table. Yep. Take a photo. Next person, take a photo. Yep. Next person. And I think going above and beyond, as simple as like, tell me about your story. Tell me about like that. Oh, like, let me send a video to your friend. It's wild how now that I'm on that side, like I get I get like what you were doing and like how, like why you were interacting with me that way of like, trying to, be like, hey, I'm going to give you my time of the day. But it's just like, it's wild to know that like one person's impact can have like such a lasting effect on someone. So
do you know what we call that? The peas and carrots.
Please break that one down for me.
What I'm saying is, again, you go to an expo.
Is that the applesauce too?
That's the applesauce too. So you go to an expo and you follow people, the bodybuilders. You look up to people for the way they look. You look up to people if you're, whether you're a girl or a guy, like you can have millions and millions of followers because of the applesauce, because you look, kids, they love little babies. They love applesauce because it tastes good. It's the sweet stuff. It's like, it's the easy stuff to eat. It's the easy stuff to digest, to visually want to follow, to want to look like that. It's surface level stuff. But the peas and carrots, the stuff that, we need, we actually is that good stuff that comes along. It's like a secondary thing that when you have that, it's longer lasting. When you give people those nuggets of time, information, quality, that's the stuff that lasts longer than the look stuff. And I think that's always what I've tried to be more about. And again, when I can't interact with people, if it's just online, only on Instagram or only on Twitter, I feel like I start getting antsy because I'm the type of person that craves that human interaction, because I think that there's a genuine connection that happens with people and you can't fake it. And in our day and age right now, there's too much applesauce and not enough peas and carrots.
Steve just secretly at nighttime when like you're watching your shows just eats baby food at nighttime.
I don't know where that analogy came from. I don't know why it popped into my head one day, but it just did. It was like, like how do you give people the good information, but not telling them it's good? How do you give them like, this is good for you, but like and that just, it's one of those things that, again, because the people you see that have tons and tons of followers usually are models, ripped up dudes. But what is what is going to be the thing that the people remember you for?
How before this podcast we were saying how like if someone says a really funny joke you've never heard, you're like, I'm going to start using that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to start using that.
The peas and carrots dice.
I'm going to leave
Fair
that
enough.
one. So with your, we'll call it the expo era, something that I used to see when I was having lines and whatnot is I used to watch on your stories or maybe it was on YouTube. You would very much be in the mindset of, you're like, hey, when I'm in expo mode, I'm here for the weekend or whatever. And we have an expo on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I have to be there on Sunday. And you would talk about how like on Saturday, everyone is going out tonight, but you're like, I'm not going out because I treat this like a job and I'm not like, you wouldn't go and drink and stuff because you treat it like a job. And it's funny because I would look at that as I'm like completely hungover in the morning and be like, couldn't be me. But,
I also think it's because I'm a introvert masquerading as an extrovert.
Yeah.
So I would literally get done with expos and I'd like go curl up, like suck my thumb in my room.
That's
like,
really weird.
Yeah. I would literally just be like so overstimulated from the day that I didn't want to see or talk to anyone for like 4 or 5 hours. And like, I just wanted, I think, you have like, we compartmentalize. I don't even think I said that.
I love that word. I never used it enough.
Compartmentalize.
Compartmentalize. It's like an apartment with a C.
Yeah, I like it.
Compartment. Samsonite. It's on the briefcase.
I was way off. Swami, slammy. Look on the briefcase. Maybe it's something. Yeah, I would just. I couldn't. Like, I didn't want to see anyone. Like even like when Morgan is a true extrovert. She can do that all day, and she gets her energy. Like she wants to go out. I'm like, I just need the golf channel now. I just need Netflix or a movie, order some takeout, and I just need to like not
lame.
Yeah.
Did you ever get into? Just kidding.
It's me.
Did you ever? It's like, Steve, we're all going to Omnia tonight. Yeah. Do you want to come in? Actually, I just ordered some lasagna from room service, and I got his glass of wine. I think
No, I wish it was. I was a people pleaser, so I'd be like, yeah, I'll be there. Not going. No,
dude, something crazy happened.
Yeah. I fell asleep watching this. No,
I'd explain to you, but I don't need peas and applesauce to kind of break it down.
I actually, though, there was a few times, and I think it was more about like, hey, if I feel comfortable with, I didn't want to go out to like a party, didn't know anyone, but like Ryan Hughes, Ghost owner, we would go out because he was with BSN, and we'd be a lot. Sean Stafford, myself, and Ryan, we did go and do some things, adult activities that.
Would you get a little lit, dude?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think Ryan likes me better drunk.
Well, Ryan used to always a big thing when they started Ghost was that he always referenced that a lot of people in the industry, when they would go out, they didn't want to be seen with alcohol or whatever. And he actually would reference you and be like, Steve didn't want to have like photos of drinking and
I really didn't drink all that often, but it was one of those things that I have and because I didn't do it a whole lot, I didn't drink a whole lot. I didn't want people to then be like, oh, Steve's drinking all the time. Like, cause again, I think you can kind of get carried away with that. It just wasn't part of my lifestyle to drink a whole lot. If I had a drink at an expo, I was worried that the 16, 17-year-old kid would be like, oh, it's cool if I drink every week and Steve drinks. And I didn't want it to necessarily be one of those things that was kind of overshown. Like, again, if I have a drink once a month, if it's in Australia, it's definitely way more than that. Just like, it's crazy, actually.
I mean, you're down under, so.
Yeah, it's like beers all the time. No, I think that there was just never, and when I said like, oh, I've probably been, the last time I was drunk probably was with Ryan in Germany.
You were probably really drunk then if you're with Ryan.
Yeah, in Germany, like at Nachtflug was the name of the club. But no, it was
drinking Das Boot.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just, so it was one of those things that like, I was aware of that, but I don't remember ever being like, no, I don't want anyone to see this ever. But it was one of those things that I didn't want to throw like drunk videos up. Like,
see, I went the opposite strategy of you. Because before I got into social media, I was a big drinker on the weekends. I was very social.
And I wasn't, yeah.
Like when I went out, like I would get just lit, boys, just lit. I would ripping shots, and like in college and with my friend Daryl, and always drink. So when I started, working out, I was like, oh, I still like to drink a lot on the weekends. When I started social media, I was like, this is just who I am.
That's who you are.
And there's probably people who have been following me for a long time. I mean, every weekend I'd make sure I made stories of like me ripping shots because I was like, this is me.
Right. And I think that to me makes complete sense. I think for me, it was like, hey, I'm here with a drink. This is the first drink I've had in a month. And I'm like,
put a statement out.
Right. Like I'm like, if I'm always showing, if we're always, because the first thing you want to do when you get a little bit tipsy is, hey, throw up.
Look how much fun I'm having.
Right. But I was like, again, I think it has its time and a place. I definitely don't care, if like now I've definitely posted drinking, like someone I did Instagram stories the other day. Someone's like, post a picture of the last time you were drunk. And I was like, well, I wasn't drunk, but we were day drinking in Spain and I had sangria. Like, I think it has its time and its place for that, but it wasn't a big part of my life. So I didn't, it was probably showcased like like I didn't overshow it on my Instagram because I wasn't doing it a whole lot. If I was drinking every weekend, you would have seen a lot more of it, but I just wasn't. And it's not that I was like, oh, alcohol is bad for your gains. I never, I've never said that like you can't drink alcohol at all. My old lifting partner who had a 6-pack year round
was a raging alcoholic.
On the weekends, he would crack open beers Friday night, Saturday night. And like, we're talking like 24 beers on a weekend. And it never affected him. So I never wanted to be like, oh, you can't drink if you're working out. But for me, it just was never a huge part of my life.
My alcohol was definitely like, I'd factored it into my week. It was like, I'm going to be on my macros. Yeah. I'm going to hit my gym. But Saturday night, I'm going to get obliterated. Sunday, I'm going to be a waste of space and eat about 30 grams of protein, eat a pizza that day.
Yep.
And I'm going to start it back over on Monday. And I'll be hitting PRs on Monday.
Yeah.
And not saying that that's how you should live your life, but that's what I did.
But for you as someone who's an ectomorph, that like you could get away with that, no problem. A lot of people, and again, you had a healthy relationship with things. A lot of people out there, it's like if they,
I'm like, I'll get obliterated. You're like, you had a healthy relationship with alcohol.
Well, no, a healthy relationship with just food.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, if they have a sip, they're going to be like off the walls, like every night. Like,
yeah.
A lot of people are like, oh, well, I have I haven't had a glass of wine or a drink probably since I was in Australia, and that's 2 months ago. But like last night, Morgan and I were like, oh, we should get a bottle of wine and watch.
You're like, crazy, bro.
Chicka bow wow. We're going to watch our favorite Australian, smutty TV show that we watch, and by smutty I mean like not really smutty, but like our guilty pleasure show.
I don't know what smutty means.
Yeah, it's kind of smutty would be like reality TV, like
trash TV.
It's all applesauce. It's not peas and carrots.
So I want something that I know we're getting older in our days now, getting
how old
busier.
Are you now? 30?
33. I'll be 34 in September.
Gosh.
Yeah, you're like what, 48?
44. No, I'm 38. Yeah.
something that I want to do is I want you, me, and Ryan one day to just go out and just be like, it's happening today. We're ripping shots.
Margaritas. I said it wrong. I said
You
the
said
R
the
again.
R, dude.
Margarita.
Margarita. Exactly. You nailed
I
it.
hit that high note. Yeah, where would we go if we were going to go out? Like
Vegas.
Actually,
it doesn't matter. We could go to the local Chewy's Mexican Tex-Mex down the street, and I'll make sure we have a good time, okay?
Is Christian... I feel like I've drank a few times with...
Christian loves a drink.
Yeah. Maybe we all go someplace... Boys trip, golf.
Christian's like there we go. Christian's like come on, let's all take like 4 double shots before we get in the Uber.
Yeah.
And then when we get there, Christian's biggest thing, and I don't people never really knew this. They thought I was the crazy drinker.
Yeah.
I would just be drunk, but Christian could handle it a lot better, but he would drink more than me.
Right.
And his thing was we'd both have a drink and he'd be like, come on, let's chug it. He'd be like, let's chug it. Every time we went out, let's chug it.
There are personalities. Like when you're drinking, there are real, like, you're more of the outgoing. Christian's like that more, like, he's not going to be verbally as boisterous, but he's like, yeah, drink, throwing him back.
I just always felt the more that I drank, the more fun I would have. It wasn't always the case.
There's some truth to, like, there is some truth to where it's like, hey, your inhibitions get lowered. Obviously, we're in Knock-Fluke, the music, boom, boom. And it's like, oh, you and your boys are just having a good time. Flex Lewis was there, actually. We had
just doing keg stands.
Honestly, it was one of those nights you're just like, hey, you can't plan for it, but when it happens, it's fun.
Yeah. And you mentioned the last time you were drinking was in Australia. And Australia is where you met your now beautiful wife. How did you meet?
We met at Sydney at a Gymshark event. Both of us had significant others. And so we
looked each other in the eye, but like, let's leave each other for each other.
No, we went surfing like as a group. And I remember Morgan was super athletic. She was, super bubbly, but like we didn't have a whole lot of interaction over the weekend. We, again, like team dinners, it was like hi, bye. But like, I think.
You were high?
No, we were high. I don't drink, but no. It was like a hi, see you later. Like there was never like a sit down talk or anything. And then she came over for Gymshark to the US to collab with some athletes. I was like, yeah, like Gymshark like calls me up like, hey, do you want to collab with Morgan? I was like, yeah, Australians are fun. My videographer at the time, Alec, he was from Australia. And I was like, definitely. So she rolled out to Utah. I didn't even pick her up at the airport. I'm a bad person. She just shows up at my doorstep, and I remember early on, like Morgan she pressed my buttons. She made me like she would just know how to get under my skin.
How so?
Stepping on my Jordans, but like we'd be in the house and like she kept on doing it on purpose, and so again like there was just some banter there, and then again like so we collabed like 2 days. She left and she did her little tour. And then we started talking. By then, I was no longer with the person that I'd been dating. We kept in touch. We kept talking. And then she came over again. And that's where I think we kind of were like, oh, we're going to start dating.
Do people with Australian accents, do they text with the accent?
Nar. No, she...
I thought she was from New Jersey at first when I met her with that accent.
From Staten Island. Yeah, no, she says some weird words like... She uses one of my favorite things. She says that's feral. Like if I do something, or if I like, I don't know. It's feral is like you're disgusting. Like that's gross.
I don't know. I feel like if I ever dated someone, or was like if
Taylor's gonna hear this, okay?
She's like, if you ever dated someone,
what do you mean?
With an accent, I feel like I would just, especially if it ever got heated.
Yeah.
I don't think I could be serious about it.
I know.
Like if someone's like, if Morgan's really angry, have you ever just been like, did a dingo eat your baby? Huh?
There are. I think we're both.
Steve, no, I'm pissed off.
That was so good, actually. That was a really good Australian accent. I do think there's constantly times that we defuse the situation without even trying, because when she's like mad and she's like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm like, oh, you're so cute. Like, oh, your little accent. You're so mad. Oh, you're so tough. And that just makes her more mad.
My favorite thing to do with people with accents is always like, hey, can you talk in an American accent?
Yeah.
And it's always like, I want to go get a cheeseburger.
Hers is she goes straight California girl. Like, yeah, totally. Like, that's her go-to is like, inland, like Valley, California girl.
Yeah.
So,
And how long into your dating
yep.
or talking were you like, this is the one?
About a year.
About an hour.
Yeah, about a year. But that was the beauty of, I don't know how old I was when we started, 35, 34, 35, was that I had been in enough relationships, gotten divorced. I knew right away what a healthy relationship looked like, and I knew right away what I was looking for. And it was one of those things, again, my dad being like the typical, like, dad that wants to see his son married and have grandkids before he dies and things like that. He's like, Steve, like, what's the dating scene like? I always wanted to know what I was dating. He's like, you got to get out there.
I need grandkids.
Yeah, there's 4 billion people 4 billion, females in the world. You're telling me you're just going to sit at home. You're not going to get out there and look for them. And I'm like, so my joke with him is I was like, she showed up at my doorstep, Dad. I didn't even
That's
go
when you
out.
go, Dad, so there's applesauce and peas and carrots, okay?
The birds and the bees.
And when you met Morgan, was your dad like, okay, son, I said there's 4 billion people in the world, and you chose one that is 30 hours away.
Halfway across the world. My poor parents, after I got done filming The Biggest Loser, I had some time before it aired that I went to Australia and spent Christmas for the first time with Morgan, met her family. And my parents actually, they're like, oh, we'll come over. They're like, oh, we're down for an adventure. Bless their hearts, though. They do this thing where they love saving money. And I'm similar in a lot of ways, but like their flight back from Australia went like Brisbane, Sydney to New Zealand to Hawaii to LA to Boise.
It took us 80 hours, but only cost $100.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, they're like, oh no, we're fine. We slept on the floor in the airport. And I'm like, you guys can't be doing that. Like, if you ever fly to Australia again, make sure it's premium, like at least comfort. But if you can afford it, like that's one of the things I'm going to splurge on is like, I don't want to.
You need the lay down seat.
Yeah. Like it is nice to have. And like next time I'll pay for their flights because they can afford it. They're
listening going, you hear that?
Yeah.
Little Stevie's going to pay for our flights.
Are they Australian too?
Her parents?
No, my parents.
I thought this was her parents.
This is my parents from the U.S.
Well, maybe they're talking. They want to. We're going to go meet her parents.
Yeah.
We need to.
Her parents too. If they come over, we'll definitely help
Steve's
them with their upgrade.
I just said I'm going to pay for everyone's flights.
I am. Hey, Morgan's mom and dad, they know this. We're doing their flights too.
So 2 things. One is, did when you met Morgan and you were like, hey, this is my person. You fall in love, all the sunshine and rainbows, right? Did the divorce from many, many years ago have an impact on your ability to love again?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or like, I'm never going to get married again because I don't want to get divorced?
No, I'd already gone through that. Like from getting divorced I had 10 years of focusing on myself, dating people, realizing, what I was and wasn't looking for. But it's also like, it's more about like the right time too. Cause a lot of people, could meet the right person, but it's not the right time in their life. So it doesn't happen. And I think for me as well, like I probably wasn't ready to get married after getting divorced for a good 10 years. And I dated people, learned a lot from those people, but I knew when I proposed to Morgan, like it was unequivocally like the first time I got engaged and married, like I was so like, this doesn't feel right, but it's what you're supposed to do. Yeah. With Morgan, it was like, no, I have no reserves, no doubts that I want to be with this person.
Obviously being on Australia is a little bit far.
Yep.
How did that impact y'all's relationship? Because there was a time y'all went 10 months without seeing each other.
10 months. Yeah. It was crazy. I couldn't get in.
Do you factor that into still you're in a relationship? You're like, they would count that in?
Yeah, we do. I mean, it was like the hardest thing was FaceTime. It was like she would wake up at 2:00 our time, like here
Damn,
in
she
St.
sleeps
George.
until 2 p.m.?
Yeah, she could. She's a great sleeper. But she would wake up and at 6 a.m. there, 2 p.m. here, and then vice versa. I'd be going to bed and it was like 2 p.m. there or 4 p.m. And so like you only get weird times of the day to talk. But you really, it's like if you can sacrifice and if you can make it through that, like, hey, if we get together, things we'll have different problems, but we know we can work together through hard issues. And so, yeah, we were apart. She couldn't get into the U.S. for about 2.5 years. And I couldn't get into Australia for about a year. So that's when we met up this is the height of COVID, like they just lockdowns and stuff. So we met in we met in Dubai, and then we did like 8 months of travel with Alec, our videographer, and that's where we got engaged in Greece. And looking back, it was like truly a once in a lifetime experience, because a lot of these places had either just opened up from COVID, or it was a very slow time because people weren't traveling. So we got like to see some amazing places with literally no tourists.
Wait, you and your videographer went on an 8-month trip?
8 months.
You're like, yeah, I'm going on a vacation with my girlfriend, future fiance.
Sold my house.
What?
Sold my house, and I was like, sold my car, and I was like, I'm going for 8 months. This is the only way we are going to be able to see each other. And I'm like, sacrifices. And I get it's like, when I say sacrifice, people are like, oh yeah, it's a sacrifice. You got to travel the world. It's one of those things like, you love traveling, but it takes its toll.
Yeah.
Like, you're not having to, again, I said, like, I love the routine. Like, you're waking up in a different bed. You're on a different time zone. There's not always a gym. There's not always, easy, healthy food to have access to, but I wouldn't trade that time for the world. Like, we saw amazing things, and I think it was definitely one of those once in a lifetime.
Well, I think going 10 months without, physically seeing or interacting with your significant other is like, that's pretty crazy. Because I feel like a lot of people couldn't make that, or be like, it's too hard on one side, and to have both people equally willing to put in that effort and to stick through it because of the greater good. And like, this is just what we have to do right now. Instead of being like, maybe we should just, if our paths cross at the end, like we'll do it, but y'all stuck with it, it's a beautiful thing, man.
It's when actually talking about it, it seems crazier than when I was going through it. When I was going through it, it's just like, oh, this is my person. I know that. So it's a sacrifice
but after
I have
like
to make.
month 3, month 4, you're like, damn, we're not even halfway.
And I think I probably, people on social media probably at the time were like, could tell I was going through some stuff, but didn't know what. You're like, oh, you're away from your significant other. It sucked so much of my daily energy thinking. Like, I contacted Congress people, governor of Utah, all of these people to be like, why can't we get her into the US? Or why can't, like, it was so frustrating, because I think that in my life, if I've worked hard at things, I've always been able to achieve goals. Like, no matter what we did, we got doors slammed in our face. And I just feel like it was such a hard thing for me to do, to have failure, and again, I felt kind of like it was my responsibility to somehow get her in, or to make this work. And we'd get close, and then it would fall through. And so, like, this is about the same time that, for the first time, this is the first time I'm actually talking about it. Like, I didn't like, I can't say necessarily I was like depressed. The counselor I saw a counselor for the first time, situational depression, but I also, like, I was diagnosed with like adult onset ADHD, prescribed not an Adderall, but a medication that my brain was just scattered. I felt like it was really hard for me to do YouTube and I think if I've learned anything from that, like, there are times that mental health, like, we always talk about how important mental health is, but it wasn't until I went through a crisis like that, where my mental health was shot, that I now can empathize with people. Because at that time it was like, oh, I didn't really, I think, have any huge major life like crises that set me back. I've had injuries and things like that, but this was one that really, like, when you look at the scale of like stress stuff, on top of it is like starting a new job, a death, moving, and I ended up like doing a lot of that. My grandma died in the process. Her grandma died, my grandma who lived here and I was pretty close with. So there was a lot of things that really I had to sit back and be like, man, I really can't control things. How do I manage? Like, it wasn't even about, I think, I wasn't in growth mode. I wasn't like, I'm going to wake up and kill it.
Yeah.
I was like, how do I manage day to day? How do I get through today and not feel angry with the world? Did
you know when you went into like her being in Australia, was that 10 month, like, it's going to be 10 months?
No.
So it was just month after month?
Yes. Every single, so we didn't know. We were just waiting. Like, I have this out with this governor is going to get back, or the governor, his office is going to get back to us. Congress, this person's going to get back to us. How did you call it?
Operator? Yeah. Congress?
Please? No, I just hit him up on Instagram, blue check mark. No, I'm kidding. No, but it was, get contacts from different people. And then, so that was when we finally were like, hey, we can't keep waiting.
Yeah.
I'm flying to Dubai. I'll meet you there. We'll bring Alec along. We'll get content, because we didn't have another option. So
okay, and then all the stars eventually aligned. One quick thing: was it always the plan for her to come here rather than you to go live in Australia?
No, there was one point where I got Hobbs, my dog, got his rabies. It's like a 6-month process.
Hobbs has rabies?
Yeah, Hobbs has I had to get his rabies titrate test, and that takes like 3 months to get back. All of this is done as a 6-month process to get him to be able to fly to Australia. And then once he's there, he would have to quarantine, not a COVID thing, just a thing for all dogs, in a Melbourne office, like for 10 weeks or something. Like your dog is there, can't leave, in a kennel type thing. Pretty weird. Australia is the only country in the world that does this. And dogs in Australia, like you can't fly. Like Hobbs can come on a flight with me. I keep him on his little carry-on. They don't do that. So like once we got to Australia, I would have had to drive down to Melbourne, which is like 20 hours in Australia, drive back because he wouldn't be able to go on a flight. So there was that issue with like, we really don't want to go through that because Morgan, she has a dog as well, lab German Shepherd.
Just got
She's
here
here
right?
now, yeah. And that is just as easy as like, hey, she has to have these vaccinations type things, rabies and things like that. Once she landed in LA, it was a 3-hour wait time for us to go through the paperwork, and then we picked her up. So way easier to get a dog here than to go to Australia. We also wanted to be in the US for business reasons, for, collaborating.
Chick-fil-A, Chipotle.
Definitely Chick-fil-A. Morgan is a Chick-fil-A fiend. Likes Chipotle too. And then we have this thing in Utah, it's Swig. It's like sodas with different, like it's literally a drive-through that's just hundreds of different sodas with sugar-free cream and like.
Yes, my local gas station has tons of different sodas
yeah,
too.
it's different. We got the Pebble Ice. If you out there have ever had a Swig or something like it, let Max know how amazing it is.
I would just have a couple swigs on Saturday night, if you know what I'm saying. So now you guys are married.
We're married.
Got engaged in Mykonos, Greece?
In Santorini, yeah.
Santorini.
But we're actually not legally married.
So you're a liar.
Yeah. So I'm living a lie.
I just really needed a banger Instagram photo and some content. So
we couldn't get married in Australia legally because it wouldn't be recognized by the U.S. So we had to get married in the U.S., but she couldn't get into the U.S. She's now here. We have a swimwear brand, Apollo and Sage.
Right.
She's an owner and an investor in that. So she's here actually on a business visa. And so we're looking to grow Apollo and Sage in the U.S. as a U.S. business. And then, it was like all of a sudden, literally, she got like this approval. She had a meeting in Sydney where she was asked all these questions. They approved it and she could get on a flight. It was like 2.5 years of waiting. And then it was like boom, boom, boom. And she was in the U.S. And so now it's kind of like, oh.
They're probably like, oh, you didn't need to wait that long.
Right.
You just needed this form right here. Why didn't you just tell us that?
You had 2 pairs of gloves this whole time?
That's essentially what happened.
Yeah.
So what is like fake marriage life like now?
Yeah, fake marriage life. It's pretty easy. Like
Yeah.
I really do feel like I was saying to her last night as we were watching our smutty Australian reality TV. It's one of those things that I feel like every night I'm like, oh my, there are literally times when you're like half asleep and I'll look over and I'm like, damn, it's crazy that, we're here after everything that we've gone through. Not to say that things aren't hard. We literally have like 2.5-3 years of business, YouTube, all these things that were put on hold that now are on our plate. So we're currently in the process of it feels overwhelming to have all these things on our plate that we need to do. But so yeah, it's like, it's overwhelming at the same time. It's fun.
Yeah.
We got to figure out if St. George is going to be the spot. Oh, Max doesn't like St. George.
I'm a judge a book by its cover when I go to somewhere. And
Max, have you got a good look at Pine Mountain yet?
Is that the snowy one?
Yes.
It looks nice.
It's really nice the closer you get. We have Zion's National Park. You just came in from a rough area at a rough time. This is a rough time of year in St. George. Usually it's pretty warm, but it is hard to get in and out of.
Okay. So can you go snowboarding on that mountain?
Yeah. Well, a mountain up there close by.
Okay.
90 minutes away, you have great snow. 10,000 feet elevation, a little bit hard to breathe.
Yeah, I mean, 11,000 would be cooler, but 10 will do. What does a typical day in the life look like for you now as you're, been in this industry for a crazy long time?
Yeah.
You got your lady. You got your tiny little dog.
Hobbs is pretty small, but he's jacked. And then we got Lou, she's the enforcer.
Complete opposite.
She's got a big, deep bark. She was barking at my neighbor kids the other day. I thought they were going to shit themselves. Day in the life for us, kind of every day is, because now we have all this stuff on our plate. It's a lot busier right now. Like when I was in Australia, I've been in Australia more the last 3 years than I've been in America. Yeah. Even in the last year, I've been in Australia more. When I was there, like I was like, oh, I'm not gonna go hire a videographer because I'm here for like 2 weeks. So it was probably an excuse for me not to work and do more golf stuff. But now that we're back, it's like full tilt. Obviously we have the fitness app. Want to really grow that, as well as I'm going to be looking to actually start my own active wear. First time I'm saying this.
Exclusive.
Yeah. So I'm looking to take the Strength Collective line that I would do with Gymshark and run with that on my own. So the plan is to ultimately have Strength Collective be its standalone brand.
Is there a reason why you don't just expand Apollo and Sage to have more than just swimwear?
Well, that would be more lifestyle stuff. So I think the difference is I don't ever want Apollo and Sage to be activewear. So
you could have Apollo be swimwear, Sage. That's why there's two names.
Would you wear something that said Sage as a guy? I just think Sage is like the Gemini. I guess the thing,
Sage is like a color, right?
I just am passionate about, like, I like the name Strength Collective for actual fitness wear. Back in the day, we had like Swolger Nation stuff too. Maybe bring some of that back as fun stuff. Get back onto YouTube, doing at least one YouTube video a week. Maybe learn how to edit. I have a lot of motivation from Max. Is it? Are you a Premiere? Are you from Premiere Pro or Final Cut Pro?
Premiere Pro.
Okay, that's what you were on too. Okay.
Yeah, that's all the big guys use it. So gotcha. you're pretty busy with a lot of the business ventures. What's your biggest
passion or
I guess
moneymaker?
Yeah,
moneymaker. You can say that. Yeah. Just say moneymaker.
I would say like biggest stream of income because you have a lot of things.
The fitness app. Yeah. So our fitness app. I feel like Jake is exercise scientist. So everything that I do, we kind of sit down and we have the strength progression side that he's heavy on, and then I'm more on the auxiliary lifts, the split, making sure things from my perspective have more of a bodybuilding feel where they need to, but we also have a powerlifting program and things like that. So we have tons of programs for, like we're starting to do like a dad bod program.
I need that.
Yeah. Matt, you're way more shredded and bigger than I thought. So you don't need any of them.
How small do you think I was?
I just thought you were going to be pretty fragile.
I'm 170 pounds of rock hard muscle.
Twisted Steel and Sex Appeal.
I don't know that one from.
That's the one you got to say.
What is that from?
I don't even know what is that from?
Is that a Steve Cook classic?
It's just a saying.
Speaking of sayings, actually, I have a question here. Because one time on my YouTube videos, I said, all right, guys, last set, best set.
Yep.
And someone was like, that's Steve Cook. That's his line. And in my head, I was like, okay. I was like,
a lot of people say that.
But I was like, did Steve invent this? Did you invent that phrase? Is that exclusively? Or did you coined it?
I can't find an earlier usage in YouTube.
I believe it was
2013
BC,
February 8th.
Yep. It was.
Translation has been lost over the years. San Diego.
Yeah, whale's vagina is actually what last set best set means in German.
We love clowning with that in the gym. It's written in massive letters, but we're always like, why last set? Like, can't your first? What if your first set's your best set? But no, it was just kind of.
I'm literally the weakest at my last set.
The last set's usually. It was something we just kind of picked up and ran with. I have actually noticed that too. I've said things before, gone away from them, come back and said it, and people have been like, "Oh, that's so and so's." Like I would say like, good morning party people, or like hello, like what's happening. No, it was always good morning party people, and then there's been a couple Gymshark athletes I think one Nathan that he really ran with that. I'm like, I'm pretty sure I said that way back in the day, but people would always be like, Nathan, that's Nathan's. It's
just whoever does it the best. It's true. Like the Magahita is from Dumb and Dumber,
right?
But it's me,
right?
So if you ever say you're not quoting a movie, you're stealing my line,
right? If now Morgan does love a margarita, I'm not a big margarita fan, but. Have you been?
Our podcast is over,
when's
guys.
The last? Actually, I'll drink one if I'm in Mexico, but I'm not just going to go to my local Texas Roadhouse where I worked. Texas Roadhouse.
No. The best margaritas are not in Mexico. The best margaritas are at
Tex-Mex.
Your local Tex-Mex.
Tex-Mex.
Yeah. Wait, here's a very important question.
Yes.
This means everything. This is going to. Remember how I said I hold you to a high standard because of how we met?
Yes, I'm worried.
Do you prefer a frozen or an on the rocks margarita?
Frozen.
Okay. Do you like salt on the rim or nothing on the rim?
I like salt on the rim.
You almost got a thumbs up from me, dude.
You don't like salt on the rim.
I hate it.
Why?
I hate all the salt in the whole world.
You don't even need to have it if you don't want it.
Okay.
But wait, so you're not a sugar guy either. You're a nothing person?
I'm so
You're
anti the salt.
agnostic.
People might actually think this is a dick move of me, but I think if you understand, you understand.
Okay.
If I say I would like a frozen margarita, no salt, which is how I say it every single time,
Yep.
like nothing on the rim. If it comes out with the salt, I'm like, can you make me a new one? Most people would say, Max, just wipe off the salt, right? No big deal.
Yeah.
The salt, if you know, you know. The salt, some of it on the inside will slowly, some of it will go into the drink
Yep.
and it makes it salty, and I don't want it. And I asked a specific way.
So you know why the salt's on there though? It's supposed to bring out the flavors. It's supposed to bring out more. You
Like
lick
what, like ass flavors?
No, you lick the rim. It's like, you know, when you do a chaser or something, it clears the palate so you can then taste.
Which is
the
strange
margarita.
because when I do a tequila shot, I like the salt.
See?
But in the margarita,
That's crazy.
It's a no. That's why whenever it actually angers me when people tag me in their stories of like
With
drinking margaritas, and it'll be like on the rocks with salt, and I'm like, this isn't it. This is, you are not in the margarita club.
All right. Wow.
Sucking back on Grandpa's old cough syrup right there.
Pull over.
I think that this episode has been fantastic, Steve.
It's been nice.
This was more for me than the people, to be honest. I feel like this was I wanted this.
Oh, I like that.
And I don't know if people are going to get the same enjoyment because it went off the tracks.
We
80
were
different
everywhere.
times.
That was crazy.
We were. I know. I
Brent killed the guy.
Brick. No, you might want to lay low. What's next for you, man? Is there anything coming up besides the exclusive? You know, the gym wear you're going?
I mean, we're so in the infant stages of that. But I think for us, Morgan and I want to get back to doing a lot more meet and greets, even if it's some expos. Figuring out what I want to do with the supplement line, which kind of was pushed to the side on things, whether I want to continue with that or you know, maybe look at other avenues with that. I think getting back to solid training is kind of what I'm most concerned about. Wanting to do a podcast. I like talking to people. Like it's a fun thing. I think where I live in St. George, it's a little limiting, but Vegas is close enough. I could
You
potentially
just
do.
fly places.
It's
like
true.
me.
And bring a whole lot of equipment. I was actually really impressed. But I think that's kind of where, hey, we've now kind of got Morgan into the country, which is the biggest thing. Let's start concentrating on things that we're passionate about. I know Morgan and I retreats and doing some things that actually get back after COVID and everything. Like I'm kind of looking forward to getting back into some meet and greets, some appearances. And I think you can't simulate that online. You can't, get that same kind of energy and vibe as
Well, that's
the
because
in-person
they're
stuff.
not there.
It's true. They're not there.
If you start your podcast, I have two names for you. Okay. Swouldercast,
Soldier Cast. Yep.
Last Pod, Best Pod.
Last pod, best. I feel like that's a pod challenge. Like, oh, last pod, best pod. I'm dead.
I'm flying and I'm dead. Hang glide. What an idiot.
Idiot.
All right,
Good.
ladies
More
and
for you
gentlemen,
and me.
I am going to put all of Steve's businesses, socials down there. If you're living under a rock, you don't know who this man is, make sure you go check his content out, his businesses, fitness app, supplements, everything will be down there.
I better start doing some content. And no, supplements won't because we don't have a store anymore.
Supplements will not be down there. But I want to thank you guys for watching this episode. If you're on YouTube, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell. If you're on any sort of podcast streaming service, make sure you give us a 5-star review. I'm not sure what it does, but I think it helps out. Thank you so much for tuning in. Eat more sour strips and ever forward.
So good.
You like that? Which is crazy because I say that at the end of every single one of my videos, and Steve clearly doesn't watch any of my
The
content.
tuning in. I've actually never thought about it. It's brilliant.
Sometimes people go, dude, Max, you should say tuning because when you say tuning in, it sounds like tuning.
it?
I'm like, I am saying that.
Oh.
Yeah, it's because it's my last name.
Yeah. Oh.
You know,
Smart guy here.
I should be like, chew on this, tune on this. No, that was
Yep.
terrible. We're out.
Let's go work out.
Oh yeah, we're about to fitness.